Hello, and salutations, my friends. Today, I'll be blessing you with a review of OMG Words, and this game was developed and published in January 2025 by a wonderful guy named Dave. Yes, just Dave. And he's a pretty cool guy. He gave me this game for free to review, and honestly, I'm sorry for the things I'm going to be saying in this review. I'm very sorry, Dave. You're a wonderful guy, but I have some words to say. But going into the review, I'd say that OMG Words is a roguelike deck builder that basically asks, what if Scrabble and Balatro had a baby? And for me daring to utter that statement, I now have to kind of go over the mechanics of both games and how it comes together to create OMG Words. And I'll just assume that you all just haven't heard of these two games, however unlikely as that is, because I just want to avoid any comments that are annoying about what the hell Scrabble is or something like that. I don't imagine I'll get comments like this, but this is just to prevent that sort of thing. So, firstly, we have Scrabble. It's a classic letter game where players take turns making words from a random selection of letter tiles. You have a grid, and each word must be played off of an existing word, and once you place the starting word in the middle of the grid. And different letters have different point values based on how easy it is to make the word. For instance, K is worth 5 points, C is worth 3 points, so if I play the word cuckold, then I would get 16 points. And then the next player can build vertically from the first C in the word cuckold and spell an entirely different word, and in this case, let's say that the word is crack for, let's say, 13 points. And that's pretty much how the game of Scrabble progresses until someone runs out of letters or both players pass their respective turn. There are also modifiers that can double or even triple your letter value, and you also have the opportunity to create multiple words from just a few of your letters, so it can go from there, but that's more or less how Scrabble plays. And secondly, we have Balatro. And in this game, you have a regular deck of playing cards, and you get points for just basically making poker hands, like a pair, a full house, or a royal flush. However, unlike the standard values in poker, in Balatro you're able to upgrade your individual cards in respective hands. So this means that you can turn your hand of a pair into a higher scoring hand than a royal flush, or have your ace of spades act as an ace of any suit. And there are also jokers that modify all aspects of the game, from counting all cards as face cards to exponentially increasing the amount of cash that you can earn per round. And there's a lot more that can be said about it, but this isn't a Balatro review, so I'm not doing that. Alright, and I'd say now smash those games together and you have OMG Words. But that now means I need to go into the actual gameplay of the game that we're covering in this review, aka OMG Words. So, in OMG Words, each round you're basically playing a solo Scrabble game and trying to reach various score levels, and for all rounds outside of the final round you'll need to reach the bronze medal score marker, which will provide you with the lowest cash prize but will still allow you to progress into the next round. And you also have the same with, a silver and gold badge to work with, and obviously the silver gives you a medium amount of money and gold gives you the highest amount of money. And between rounds, there's a shop where you can basically use the money that you've gained to buy various modifiers, and this includes relics that alter the core aspects of your gameplay, boons that apply to things such as tile modifications that let you generate more cash when being played, or completely disabling a boss ability, and there are a few more features that I don't really want to get into also. And if this doesn't really make any sense, well, I'll compare these aspects in Balatro terms. Basically, jokers become relics, tarot cards become boons, vouchers become blueprints, and wild cards become blank tiles. And there are also bosses between every few rounds, and each boss gives an added challenge, such as requiring you to lose point values on every tile played, or a higher score value to reach. And again, the game is literally just Balatro, but Scrabble. But unfortunately, as enticing as a concept as may be, personally I have many issues with the gameplay in OMG Words, and these issues fall under three general themes: difficulty, lack of flexibility, and an absence of clarity. One of the biggest issues with OMG Words is the overwhelming difficulty. And to be clear, I've beaten the game multiple times across different modes and difficulties, so this isn't coming from someone that's struggling to win. It's more about the experience of getting to this point and getting over the difficulty curve. And frankly, it was just miserable at times and not particularly fun. Even when I managed to get godly combinations of relics and boons, the feeling of satisfaction was just short-lived, honestly, because the main reason why is because there's a sharp point threshold that you need to reach in each of the 10 rounds. And the game never gives you that roguelite satisfaction of crafting a perfect build that matches your playstyle. Instead, it feels more like there's a single correct way to win, and if you deviate from that, you're just setting yourself up for failure. A major reason for this punishing difficulty is honestly the limited amount of money that you earn. The money in this game is so scarce that you can't even afford to experiment with builds, and you're forced to scrape by with just enough relics to survive. And even then, that's only if you're playing in a way that perfectly aligns with the game's rigid demands, and when expensive relics or boons show up, you rarely have enough money to try them out. And even if you do have enough money, you basically bankrupt yourself by simply trying something new, which doesn't feel rewarding at all, and the lack of flexibility makes the game feel even more restrictive than it should. Flexibility is another area where I think this game falls short at. The game actively discourages experimentation with different builds because of the limited money supply and the high stakes involved, and you just can't afford to buy relics or boons for the just-in-case scenarios because the scaling point requirement each round is too steep. This creates a situation where you're not just strategizing, but you're forced to play a certain way to have any chance at winning. If a new relic or boon appears mid-run and you just want to pivot your strategy, you can't because you've already committed to a specific build and you probably don't have the money to have the flexibility to do so. And the game doesn't offer the freedom to adjust and adapt like a good roguelike should. Experimenting feels more like a gamble where failure just means wasting an entire run, and since money is so tight, you often can't even afford to try new things without ruining your chances of success. I don't know, when I lose a round or lose a game, I honestly just feel I don't feel like I want to play the game again. I just feel like I want to quit the game right there because it's not rewarding enough when you win, and when you lose, it just hurts a lot. And finally, the game's lack of clarity makes the experience even more frustrating. The word classification system feels inconsistent and at times nonsensical. For example, the game accepts words like AA and AAS, but rejects common terms like Nile and Asia because they're considered proper nouns. And as an avid Scrabble player, I know this already. I've played Scrabble before, I know this, but that kind of information should be clearly communicated in the game for people that don't play Scrabble, because I feel like a lot of people that come to this game are going to be people that just play Balatro and want to scratch that Balatro itch after playing that game. And players shouldn't have to guess which words are acceptable and just basically throw words around to see what works and what doesn't. And this lack of consistency just makes it just hard to make a reliable strategy, and it just adds to the overall frustration of the game. However, despite the negatives that I have to say about the game, there is genuinely a fun game here, and I think there is a reason why I kept playing multiple game modes and difficulty levels despite the issues. When the game isn't bending you over with its overly restricted nature, you're able to discover that there are genuinely some cool mechanics and synergies to discover, but as the game currently stands, I think its overly restrictive nature is holding it back tremendously. As for the game's artistic presentation, I feel like that it's a mixed bag. The graphics are honestly not that bad, and they effectively communicate what the game is on about, and I feel like there are nice designs for the relics and boons, all of which convey some interesting ideas and some enjoyable puns, and the boards, tiles, stamps, and other icons are also very easy to understand, with effective color coding and design. However, I do feel like the game is graphically empty at times. There are barely any effects present throughout the game, and everything feels really sterile. I also don't feel any sense of game differentiating identity here. In Balatro, you obviously have the Joker being the game's main identifier, but for OMG Words, I don't even know what it would be. Sure, there's a theme of mythological gods and goddesses for the boons, but that doesn't really connect to any other theme throughout the game, so that just can't work. And this may seem like a nitpick, but I think it's something that's important for a game to establish its identity and differentiate itself from the crowd. And for sound design, I genuinely think this must be a work in progress, honestly, because this game is absolutely barren in this department. And I think there's only really one basic tune playing in the background of the whole game, a few sound effects for placing tiles and winning, and a tune that basically plays when you win or lose the game. And that's pretty much it. There's nothing catchy and nothing that stands out. At the end of the day, OMG Words is a game with some seriously cool ideas, and I honestly think it has a lot of potential, but it's being held back by how restrictive and rigid the gameplay feels. The blend of Scrabble and Balatro mechanics works surprisingly well, and I think there's a satisfying core underneath all of these issues. When everything clicks and you manage to build a strong combination of relics and boons, it's genuinely fun, but those moments are few and far between because the game makes it so hard to explore different strategies without being punished. Roguelikes are supposed to thrive on experimentation, but in OMG Words, the steep scoring thresholds and the limited money supply make it nearly impossible to pivot or just try something new, and you're forced into a narrow playstyle, and any attempt to branch out usually ends in failure. And if the game gave players more freedom to experiment and adapt mid-run without constantly being stressed about reaching target scores or running out of money, I think that it could easily become something amazing. But despite my frustrations, I kept coming back to the game because the foundation is genuinely solid, and the synergy between different relics and boons shows that the game could be incredibly rewarding if it weren't so punishing. So if the glorious Dave tweaks the balance to allow for more creative freedom and smoother progression, I think that this game can go from being a frustrating challenge to being an addictive masterpiece. So yeah, there are my thoughts on OMG Words, and hopefully it's an effective explanation on my experience with the game and what it has to offer. And if you have any further questions or want to share your thoughts on the game, just feel free to leave them in the comments below. And if you've enjoyed this video, then liking would help me out a ton, and I encourage you to subscribe for more content like this. I know I haven't been making many long form videos like this, and I'm hoping to become a bit better at becoming consistent, but yeah, that's where we're at right now. And as you can see, I got rid of the scoring section at the end because it just wasn't me. I was trying to go for a different vibe, and I also wanted to do the whole completionist like aspect of things, but it just wasn't working for me. I realized it was making me not want to make more videos because I would have to complete the game, and then I also noticed that people would sort of branch off before it even got to that section, so not many people were even watching that section, so it's like it felt pretty pointless to me, even though it's significant to me, but hey, it is what it is. But for now, I am off, and take care, everyone.